In the vast expanse of the universe, where stars twinkled like distant lanterns and planets drifted silently in the endless void, there existed a world unlike any other. This planet, known as Xyora 7, was home to a civilization of beings who had evolved far beyond human comprehension. Their cities floated above the ground, suspended by anti-gravity technology that defied the laws of physics. The air shimmered with hues of violet and gold, creating an ethereal atmosphere that seemed almost magical to outsiders. Among these advanced beings lived a young girl named Lyra, whose large luminous eyes reflected the same colors as her planet's skies. Her skin shimmered with a pearlescent sheen, and her hair flowed like liquid silver down her back. Like all children of Xyora 7, Lyra possessed extraordinary abilities. She could manipulate energy fields with a mere thought and communicate telepathically across great distances. Yet despite these remarkable gifts, Lyra carried a deep sadness within her heart. The war had come suddenly, without warning, tearing through their peaceful existence like a meteor through a clear night sky. Ships from a distant galaxy had descended upon Xyora 7, their weapons more powerful than anything the peaceful civilization had ever encountered. In the chaos that followed, Lyra had been separated from her parents during an evacuation. She remembered the panic in her mother's voice as they ushered her into an escape pod, the desperate look in her father's eyes as he activated the launch sequence. For 3 cycles of Xylora's twin sons, Lyra had believed them lost forever. The authorities told her that her parents had perished in the battle for the capital city. They showed her holographic records of the destruction, of ships exploding in brilliant bursts of light against the backdrop of space. Each night, as she lay in her temporary quarters at the refugee center, Lyra would stare out at the stars, willing herself to feel some connection to her parents, some sign that they were still alive somewhere among those distant lights. The war had changed everything. The once thriving cities now bore scars of conflict, their floating structures marred by blackened patches where energy weapons had struck. Many families had been torn apart, and the collective grief of the Xyloran people hung heavy in the air, mixing with the usual sweet scent of their atmosphere. Despite the devastation, life continued in a fragile semblance of normalcy. Children like Lyra attended school in underground facilities, learning about reconstruction efforts and how to defend their planet should another attack occur. Yet amidst all this change, one thing remained constant: Lyra's unwavering belief that her parents had loved her deeply. She clung to memories of family meals shared in their gravity-defying dining room, of games played in the hovering gardens where flowers bloomed upside down. These recollections became her sanctuary, a place she could retreat to when the weight of her loss threatened to overwhelm her. The other children at the center tried to comfort her, but how could anyone understand what it felt like to lose both parents in such a violent, sudden way? As the days stretched into weeks, then months, Lyra found herself withdrawing further into her shell. The counselors at the center encouraged her to participate in group activities, to make new friends, but she couldn't bring herself to care about anything beyond her own private mourning. Even her natural abilities seemed to dim, as if her grief was sapping the very energy that powered her gifts. The bright spark that had once characterized her presence now flickered weakly, threatening to extinguish completely. On the surface of Xyora 7, where the purple grass swayed under the dual sun's light, a most unusual alliance had formed between the native inhabitants and a group of human soldiers from Earth. Captain Marcus Hale, a seasoned military officer with eyes as gray as storm clouds, led this contingent of peacekeepers. His uniform bore the marks of many battles fought across the galaxy, yet his face carried lines that spoke more of personal struggles than physical conflicts. Marcus had arrived on Xyora 7 after responding to a distress signal, expecting a straightforward rescue mission, but fate had other plans. The humans quickly realized that their traditional methods of warfare wouldn't suffice against the mysterious invaders who had attacked Xyora 7. Instead, they found themselves drawn into a complex web of diplomacy and technological exchange. The Xylorans, despite their advanced civilization, lacked experience in combat strategy, while the humans possessed tactical knowledge that could help defend the planet. An uneasy partnership developed, forged in the fires of shared adversity and mutual respect. Marcus spent countless hours in council chambers, negotiating terms and sharing intelligence with Xyloran leaders. During these meetings, he observed the profound impact of the war on the civilian population, particularly the children who had lost family members. The sight of young ones like Lyra, carrying burdens far too heavy for their years, stirred something deep within him. He had left behind a daughter on Earth, just a few years younger than Lyra, and seeing these alien children struggling to cope with their losses reopened wounds he had thought long healed. The human soldiers established their base near the refugee center where Lyra resided. Through daily interactions, bonds began forming between the two species. Humans learned to appreciate the subtle nuances of Xyloran culture, the way emotions manifested as color shifts in their skin, the intricate patterns of their telepathic communication. In return, the Xylorans discovered that these seemingly primitive beings possessed qualities they had never considered valuable before: resilience, adaptability, and an unyielding determination to protect those they cared about. Marcus made it a point to visit the refugee center regularly, bringing supplies and spending time with the children. He shared stories of his own experiences growing up on Earth, of losing his wife in a space accident and raising his daughter alone. These tales resonated with many of the young Xylorans, who found comfort in knowing that someone understood their pain. With each visit, Marcus noticed Lyra watching him from a distance, her silver hair catching the light like strands of moonlight. One particular afternoon, as Marcus helped organize a supply distribution, he caught Lyra attempting to use her energy manipulation abilities to lift crates. Her powers faltered, and several containers tumbled to the ground. Rather than scolding her, Marcus approached gently, demonstrating proper lifting techniques using his own strength. To his surprise, Lyra didn't recoil or withdraw as she usually did with adults. Instead, she watched him intently, her violet eyes wide with curiosity. "Your abilities are like muscles," Marcus explained, crouching beside her. "They need practice and patience to grow stronger." He held out his hand, palm up. "May I show you something?" Lyra hesitated only briefly before placing her small hand in his. The moment their skin touched, Marcus felt a strange warmth spread through his fingers, accompanied by a flood of emotions that weren't his own: loneliness, fear, and a desperate longing for connection. The experience startled him, but he maintained his composure, recognizing this as part of Xyloran telepathic communication. "You're not alone in your pain," Marcus said softly. "I lost my wife, remember? And sometimes, I feel like I've lost pieces of myself too." He gestured toward the children helping with the supplies. "But look around you. We find ways to keep going, to rebuild what's broken." Lyra withdrew her hand slowly, her expression unreadable. Yet Marcus noticed something different in her demeanor. A slight softening of her defensive posture, a hint of interest in her gaze. As he stood to leave, she surprised him by speaking for the first time since they'd met. "Why do you keep coming here?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "We're not your people." Marcus paused, considering his answer carefully. "Because sometimes, helping others helps us heal our own wounds. And because—" He trailed off, unsure whether to share the thoughts swirling in his mind. "Well, we'll talk more next time, okay?" The following days saw a gradual transformation in Lyra's behavior. While she still maintained her distance from most people, she began seeking out Marcus during his visits to the center. Their conversations started tentatively, with Lyra asking questions about Earth and its inhabitants. Marcus, in turn, learned about Xyloran customs and traditions, marveling at how much beauty existed in their apparently simple gestures and rituals. During one of their talks, Lyra finally opened up about her parents. She described her last moments with them in vivid detail, her voice trembling as she recalled the emergency evacuation. Marcus listened intently, understanding that this sharing of memories was a significant step in her healing process. He shared stories of his own family, careful to maintain a balance between openness and professional boundaries. Their bond deepened as they discovered common ground in their experiences of loss. Marcus taught Lyra practical skills, showing her how to repair equipment and organize resources efficiently. In return, Lyra introduced him to the intricacies of Xyloran energy manipulation, explaining how emotions could influence the strength and stability of their powers. Through these exchanges, Marcus began noticing subtle changes in Lyra's abilities. Her control improved, and her confidence grew. The other refugees took note of their developing relationship. Some expressed concern about a human becoming too involved with a Xyloran child, while others saw it as a symbol of hope and reconciliation between their peoples. The center's administrators, recognizing the positive impact Marcus had on Lyra, officially requested his continued participation in their support programs. One evening, as the twin suns cast elongated shadows across the compound, Marcus found himself sitting with Lyra on a viewing platform overlooking the damaged cityscape. For the first time, she reached out to touch his arm voluntarily, her small hand resting lightly on his sleeve. The gesture, so simple yet profound, communicated more than words ever could about the trust she was beginning to place in him. "I wish I could believe they're still alive," Lyra confessed, breaking the comfortable silence between them. "But every day that passes makes it harder to hold on to that hope." Marcus placed his hand over hers, feeling the familiar warmth of her telepathic energy. "Sometimes," he said carefully, "hope isn't about believing things will turn out exactly as we want. It's about keeping our hearts open to possibilities we can't yet imagine." Their relationship had evolved beyond mere friendship or mentorship. It had become something unique and vital to both their healing journeys. Yet neither of them could have anticipated how profoundly their lives were about to change, or the secrets that lay waiting to transform everything they thought they knew about loss, love, and the true meaning of family. The revelation came on an ordinary afternoon, when Marcus received an encrypted transmission from command headquarters. At first glance, it appeared to be routine intelligence data, coordinates, timestamps, and classified reports about enemy movements. But as Marcus scrolled through the documents, one entry caught his attention: a list of Xyloran prisoners rescued from a hidden detention facility during a recent raid. Among the names were two that made his heart stop: Kalian and Seraphina, Lyra's parents. His hands trembled as he read the details. According to the report, Kalian and Seraphina had been captured during the initial attack on the capital city. Instead of being executed as presumed, they had been taken prisoner and held in a secret location, their captors hoping to extract information about Xylora 7's defense systems. The rescue operation had been successful, though both had sustained injuries and were currently undergoing medical treatment at a secure human facility. Marcus stared at the screen, the implications of this discovery crashing over him like a tidal wave. All this time, Lyra had believed her parents dead, carrying the weight of that loss alone. Now, faced with the possibility of reuniting her with her family, he felt the enormous responsibility of delivering such life-changing news. The report included strict instructions to keep the information confidential until official diplomatic channels could arrange a formal reunion. That evening, as Lyra practiced her energy manipulation exercises nearby, Marcus struggled with the weight of his knowledge. He watched her focus intently on lifting small objects, her brow furrowed with concentration. How could he tell her that everything she believed about her past was about to change? What if she didn't believe him? Worse still, what if the reunion somehow didn't go as hoped? The next day, Marcus requested an emergency meeting with the Human and Xyloran Leadership Councils. During the session, he argued passionately for immediate disclosure to Lyra, citing her emotional well-being and the potential trauma of a delayed reunion. However, the council members reminded him of the delicate political situation. The rescued prisoners were valuable assets in negotiations with the enemy, and premature revelations could jeopardize ongoing peace talks. Frustrated but understanding their position, Marcus returned to the refugee center, carrying the burden of his secret. That night, as he helped Lyra organize supplies, he found himself scrutinizing her every movement, every expression, wondering how she would react when she finally learned the truth. Would she be angry at being kept in the dark? Would she blame him for withholding such crucial information? Days turned into weeks, and Marcus grew increasingly conflicted. He began documenting every interaction with Lyra, noting subtle changes in her behavior that might indicate some subconscious awareness of her parents' survival. Had she picked up on his tension during their conversations? Did she sense the unspoken words that lingered between them? The telepathic nature of Xyloran communication made every encounter fraught with potential misinterpretation. Meanwhile, Lyra herself seemed to detect something different in Marcus's demeanor. She noticed how he would sometimes start to say something, then abruptly change the subject. His gray eyes, usually so steady and reassuring, now occasionally darted away from her gaze. One afternoon, as they worked together repairing a damaged energy converter, she finally voiced her concerns. "You're hiding something from me," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil churning within her. "I can feel it in your thoughts, even when you try to shield them." Marcus froze, his hands still on the converter's panel. The moment he had dreaded, and secretly hoped for, had arrived. "Lyra," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "there's something I need to tell you. But I need you to promise me you'll hear me out completely before reacting." Her silver hair seemed to shimmer brighter as her anxiety increased. "Is it about the war?" Have the enemy ships returned? No, Marcus replied, taking a deep breath. It's about your parents. They're not. Before he could finish, an alarm blared through the compound, signaling an incoming attack. Soldiers scrambled to their positions, and civilians were rushed to shelters. In the chaos that followed, Marcus and Lyra were separated, their moment of truth cruelly interrupted by the very conflict that had kept her parents from her for so long. As explosions rocked the facility, Marcus fought his way through falling debris toward the shelter where Lyra had been taken. His mind raced with the unfinished conversation, the words he hadn't been able to speak. Above them, the sky burned with the light of battle, illuminating the faces of frightened refugees and determined soldiers alike. The war that had shaped both their lives was far from over, and now it threatened to prevent the reunion they both desperately needed. With the attack forcing everyone into emergency protocols, Marcus found himself stationed at the perimeter defenses while Lyra remained secured in the underground shelter. The separation gnawed at him, the unfinished revelation burning in his chest like an unspent energy core. Every explosion that shook the ground above seemed to echo the turmoil within him. He knew that somewhere in the chaos, Lyra was grappling with the fragments of their interrupted conversation, her imagination likely spinning worst-case scenarios about her parents. Hours passed in a blur of coordinated defense maneuvers and counterattacks. When the assault finally subsided, leaving behind a landscape of smoke and shattered technology, Marcus immediately sought permission to check on the shelters. His request was denied, the area needed securing, and experienced officers were scarce. As he stood guard, watching medics tend to the wounded and engineers assess structural damage, his mind replayed every moment spent with Lyra, searching for signs he might have missed about her parents' survival. In the shelter below, Lyra sat huddled with other refugees, her thoughts racing faster than the energy pulses she could normally control. Marcus's hesitation, his aborted sentence, these fragments of information tormented her. She had always trusted her instincts, her ability to read the emotional currents around her, and now those senses screamed that something monumental had been about to happen. The interruption by the attack felt almost deliberate, as if the universe itself conspired against her finding closure. When Marcus finally gained access to the shelters hours later, he found Lyra exactly where he expected, standing apart from the others, her silver hair glowing faintly in the artificial light. Her violet eyes locked onto him immediately, filled with equal parts hope and accusation. Before he could speak, she raised a hand, silencing him with a gesture that carried more authority than any adult command. "Don't," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her lower lip. "Don't tell me there's no time, or that it's not safe. Whatever you were going to say before, it's eating at you. I can feel it. And it's tearing me apart too." Around them, other refugees began to notice the intensity of their exchange. Some moved closer, sensing the significance of the moment, while others discreetly retreated, giving them space. Marcus glanced at the gathering crowd, then back at Lyra, realizing that whatever happened next would affect more than just the two of them. The entire community had witnessed their growing bond, had seen how their relationship represented the fragile bridge between human and Xyloran cultures. He knelt before her, bringing himself to her eye level. "Lyra," he began, choosing his words carefully, "what I was trying to tell you is that your parents, they're not gone. Not the way we thought." The statement hung in the air between them, heavier than any weapon fired during the attack. Lyra's telepathic abilities flared instinctively, reaching out to confirm the truth of his words. The rush of emotions that followed nearly overwhelmed her. Relief, joy, anger, confusion all battling for dominance. Her knees buckled, and Marcus caught her before she could fall, holding her gently as she processed the magnitude of his revelation. "How?" she managed to ask, her voice barely audible over the hum of shelter generators. "Where have they been? Why didn't anyone tell me?" Before Marcus could answer, the shelter entrance burst open, and a Xyloran elder hurried in, followed by several human officers. Their expressions confirmed the gravity of the situation. News of Lyra's parents had somehow leaked, and now everyone wanted answers. The previously orderly space dissolved into chaos as refugees pressed forward, demanding explanations while security personnel attempted to maintain order. Through the commotion, Marcus kept his focus on Lyra, shielding her from the pressing crowd. He could see the conflicting emotions playing across her face, the desire to demand immediate reunion with her parents warring with the understanding that such matters required careful handling. Her energy field fluctuated wildly, causing nearby lights to flicker and electronic devices to malfunction. "We need to get you somewhere safe," Marcus whispered urgently. "Somewhere we can talk properly." He signaled to the security team, who began clearing a path through the crowd. As they moved toward a secure chamber at the rear of the shelter, Marcus noticed several media drones hovering nearby, their lenses trained on Lyra. The story of the lost child and her supposedly deceased parents had apparently become public knowledge, and now the entire galaxy would be watching how this drama unfolded. Inside the secure room, Lyra paced like a caged animal, her energy field crackling with pent-up emotions. "Tell me everything," she demanded, turning to face Marcus. "No more secrets. No more half-truths." Marcus nodded, understanding that trust had become their most precious commodity. "Your parents were captured during the initial attack," he explained carefully. "They've been held prisoner in a facility we recently liberated. They're alive, Lyra, but they've been through a lot. The reason we haven't reunited you immediately is complex, involving politics, security concerns, and the need to ensure your safety during these unstable times." Each word seemed to hit Lyra like a physical force, her body swaying slightly with the impact of this new reality. "So they're close?" she asked, her voice rising with hope. "I can see them soon?" The door to the secure room opened suddenly, admitting a high-ranking Xyloran official accompanied by Marcus's commanding officer. Their grave expressions suggested that the situation had grown even more complicated while they'd been talking. Marcus exchanged a quick glance with Lyra, silently communicating that their journey toward reunion was far from over, and that the path ahead would require both courage and patience. As the officials began discussing the sensitive matter of Lyra's parents, Marcus couldn't help but notice how the room's atmosphere shifted. The walls seemed to press inward, charged with the weight of expectation and the gravity of their situation. Lyra stood rigid, her silver hair practically sparking with contained energy, while the officials debated protocol and security measures. Every fiber of Marcus's being screamed to take her directly to her parents, to end this prolonged separation immediately, but years of military discipline kept him rooted in place. The Xyloran official, a tall being with iridescent scales that shifted colors with his emotions, addressed Lyra directly. "Child of Kalian and Seraphina," he began, his voice resonating with ceremonial formality, "the circumstances of your parents' captivity are delicate. Their release could affect the balance of power in our negotiations with the invaders." Lyra's response shocked everyone present. "Negotiations," she exclaimed, her voice cracking with emotion. "My parents aren't bargaining chips. They're living beings who've suffered enough." The room's lighting system flickered violently as her energy field expanded uncontrollably. Marcus stepped forward, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. "She's right," he stated firmly, addressing both the Xyloran and human authorities. "Whatever strategic value her parents hold, we must prioritize their humanity. 3 cycles of believing them dead has already cost Lyra too much." The human commander, Colonel Reeves, frowned deeply. "Captain Hale, you know the stakes here. If we move prematurely, if we don't move with compassion, we lose everything that makes us worth fighting for," Marcus interrupted, surprising even himself with his boldness. "These people have lost homes, family, and faith in their future. Reuniting Lyra with her parents could be the beacon of hope this planet desperately needs." The tension in the room became palpable as the officials exchanged meaningful glances. Finally, the Xyloran representative spoke again, his scales shifting to a calming blue-green hue. "Perhaps there is a middle path. A controlled reunion, under secure conditions, with appropriate safeguards for everyone involved." "But when?" Lyra demanded, her voice breaking. "Every moment you delay is another moment they think I'm lost to them forever." Colonel Reeves consulted his datapad, clearly weighing the risks against potential benefits. "We could arrange a virtual meeting first," he suggested cautiously. "Let them see each other, establish contact, while we finalize security arrangements for an in-person reunion." Marcus could see the compromise chafing at Lyra's patience, but also recognized the wisdom in gradual steps. He squeezed her shoulder gently, silently urging her to accept this partial solution. After a long, agonizing pause, she nodded stiffly, her lower lip trembling with restrained emotion. Preparations for the virtual meeting began immediately, transforming the secure room into a communications hub. Technicians from both species worked side by side, establishing a secure link to the medical facility where Lyra's parents were recovering. Marcus stayed close to Lyra throughout the process, offering silent support as she struggled to contain her anticipation. Her energy field continued to fluctuate, causing minor disruptions in the equipment setup, but the technicians handled these challenges with remarkable patience. Finally, the moment arrived. The large holoscreen flickered to life, and for several heart-stopping seconds, static filled the display. Then gradually, two figures resolved into view, a male with shimmering indigo skin and a female whose pearlescent features mirrored Lyra's own. Both wore hospital garments, their faces lined with exhaustion but alight with cautious hope. "Lyra?" the woman whispered, her voice trembling. "Is that really you?" Time seemed to freeze as mother and daughter locked gazes across the digital divide. Lyra's knees buckled again, and this time Marcus caught her fully, lowering her gently to the floor as she began to sob uncontrollably. Her parents' reactions were equally powerful. Tears streamed down their faces as they reached toward the screen, their hands trembling with emotion. Marcus stepped back slightly, allowing the family their moment of connection while maintaining his protective stance nearby. The raw emotion filling the room transcended species barriers. Even the hardened technicians wiped away tears as they monitored the connection. The Xyloran official stood solemnly, his scales shifting through a spectrum of colors that reflected the depth of the moment's significance. As the initial shock gave way to tentative conversation, Marcus observed how Lyra's energy field began to stabilize, pulsing with a warmth and brightness he hadn't seen since meeting her. Her parents, though visibly weakened by their ordeal, radiated a similar glow as they absorbed every detail of their daughter's appearance and listened to her halting account of life without them. The virtual meeting lasted far longer than initially planned, with officials tactfully allowing the family extra time before terminating the connection. When it finally ended, Lyra remained seated on the floor, her face buried in her hands as she processed everything she had experienced. Marcus knelt beside her once more, offering quiet support while the authorities discussed logistics for the eventual in-person reunion. "She looks so much older," Serafina had said during their conversation, her voice thick with emotion. "Our little star has grown into a supernova while we were away." Kalian had added, "We heard rumors of a human soldier helping our people. Now we understand why you've survived so well, my brave girl." His words had carried a double meaning that didn't escape Marcus's notice. Gratitude mixed with the natural protectiveness of a parent assessing those influencing their child. As the room emptied of officials and technicians, Marcus helped Lyra to her feet. Her eyes, still red from crying, shone with a mixture of joy and apprehension. "They're real," she whispered, as if still needing to convince herself. "After all this time, they're real." "And they love you," Marcus responded gently. "That never changed, no matter what happened." The road ahead remained uncertain, security concerns still needed addressing, rehabilitation processes completed, and diplomatic sensitivities navigated. But in that moment, surrounded by the aftermath of their emotional reunion, Marcus knew they had crossed a threshold that would change everything. The war might continue to rage outside, but within these walls, hope had found fertile ground to take root and grow. Beyond the confines of the secure room, the ripple effects of Lyra's reunion spread through both the Xyloran and human communities like waves across a cosmic sea. Refugees who had witnessed snippets of the virtual meeting through hastily assembled viewing screens began sharing their own stories of loss and resilience. Council chambers buzzed with urgent discussions about the implications of revealing other rescued prisoners, while military strategists recalculated their approaches to prisoner exchanges and negotiations. Marcus found himself at the center of this expanding web of consequences, his role evolving from mere soldier to unofficial ambassador of hope. Requests poured in from families seeking information about missing loved ones, each inquiry carrying the weight of desperate longing. The human base transformed into a hub of activity, with communication specialists working around the clock to verify identities and coordinate potential reunions. Among the Xyloran population, Lyra's story sparked a cultural awakening. Traditional ceremonies of remembrance took on new meanings as families began acknowledging the possibility that their lost members might still be alive. Artists created murals depicting scenes of reunion, while musicians composed symphonies that resonated with themes of perseverance and rediscovery. The planet's atmosphere seemed to shimmer with renewed vibrancy, as if the collective hope of its inhabitants had physically altered its very essence. For Lyra herself, The days following her virtual meeting with her parents became a delicate balancing act between anticipation and anxiety. Regular communication sessions were arranged, each one monitored by both Xyloran and human officials. During these encounters, Marcus observed how Lyra's relationship with her parents evolved from tentative recognition to genuine connection. They shared stories of their separate experiences, filling in the gaps of lost time with careful, deliberate words. Yet beneath the surface progress, deeper challenges emerged. Lyra struggled with conflicting emotions. Joy at her parents' survival clashed with residual anger at their prolonged absence. Her parents, in turn, grappled with guilt over the trauma their capture had inflicted on their daughter. These emotional complexities manifested in subtle ways during their virtual meetings, with energy fields occasionally flaring in response to unspoken tensions. Marcus took on the role of mediator, drawing upon his own experiences as a single parent to help navigate these turbulent waters. He organized counseling sessions that incorporated both human and Xyloran therapeutic techniques, creating a hybrid approach that respected both cultures' needs. Through these sessions, Lyra began processing not just the fact of her parents' survival, but the broader implications of their reunion in a world forever changed by war. The human soldiers stationed on Xylora, 7 found themselves increasingly involved in these emotional dramas. Where once their primary focus had been military strategy and defense, they now participated in rebuilding efforts that extended beyond physical structures to encompass the restoration of shattered lives. Bonding sessions between human and Xyloran families became commonplace, fostering understanding and cooperation that transcended species barriers. Medical facilities housing rescued prisoners expanded their services to include psychological support, recognizing the deep scars left by captivity and separation. Marcus worked closely with these teams, advocating for comprehensive care that addressed both physical and emotional wounds. His experiences with Lyra informed new protocols for handling sensitive cases of family reunification, protocols that would later influence interstellar humanitarian efforts. As preparations continued for Lyra's eventual in-person reunion with her parents, the entire planet seemed to hold its breath in anticipation. Security measures intensified, with both human and Xyloran forces collaborating on unprecedented levels to ensure the safety of all involved. Diplomatic negotiations incorporated provisions for family reunification, establishing frameworks that would guide similar cases in the future. The atmosphere of change affected even the smallest aspects of daily life. Children at the refugee center began expressing hope about their own missing family members, their imaginations fueled by Lyra's story. Elderly Xylorans who had given up on seeing their descendants again started participating more actively in community activities, their spirits lifted by the possibility of unexpected connections. Through it all, Marcus maintained his vigil, watching over Lyra as she prepared to step into the next chapter of her journey. He recognized that their relationship had fundamentally altered. No longer just mentor and mentee, they had become symbols of cross-species understanding and resilience. The weight of this responsibility settled comfortably on his shoulders, blending with his existing duties to create a new sense of purpose. Night after night, as the twin suns set over the recovering landscape, Marcus found himself reflecting on how one child's story had catalyzed such profound transformation. The war continued to cast its shadow across Xylora 7, but within that darkness, points of light had begun to emerge, connections forged, hopes rekindled, and lives redirected toward healing and growth. Each development, each small victory in the realm of personal relationships, contributed to a larger tapestry of recovery that stretched far beyond the immediate horizon of conflict. The journey toward Lyra's full reunion with her parents proved to be a labyrinth of unforeseen challenges and transformative moments. As security preparations intensified, Marcus discovered layers of bureaucratic complexity he hadn't anticipated. The facility housing Kalian and Serafina required extensive modifications to accommodate both Xyloran and human security protocols, while diplomatic negotiations demanded careful balancing of interests from multiple galactic factions invested in the outcome. Each day brought new developments that tested everyone's patience and resolve. Medical teams reported fluctuations in Serafina's condition, requiring adjustments to the reunion timeline. Meanwhile, Kalian demonstrated remarkable progress in his rehabilitation but expressed growing frustration with the prolonged separation from his daughter. Their virtual meetings became both a source of strength and a reminder of their physical distance, with emotional currents flowing so strongly that even non-telepathic humans could feel the tension. Lyra responded to these delays with a maturity that astonished Marcus. Rather than succumbing to despair, she channeled her energy into helping other families navigate their own searches for missing loved ones. She organized support groups at the refugee center, drawing upon her experiences to offer guidance and hope to those still waiting for news. Her natural leadership abilities blossomed, earning her respect from both young and old across species lines. The human military presence adapted to these changing dynamics, with soldiers increasingly involved in humanitarian efforts alongside their defensive roles. Marcus found himself coordinating joint operations that combined rescue missions with infrastructure rebuilding, creating opportunities for meaningful interaction between humans and Xylorans. These collaborations revealed surprising synergies between their respective technologies and philosophies, leading to innovations in both warfare and peacekeeping strategies. A breakthrough came when Lyra, during one of her support group sessions, suggested establishing a communal memory garden. This idea, inspired by traditional Xyloran practices of honoring lost loved ones, evolved into a massive project that united refugees, soldiers, and local residents in a shared endeavor. The garden became a living testament to resilience, with each plant representing a story of separation and hope for reunion. Its creation coincided with improvements in Kalian's condition, allowing doctors to accelerate their preparations for the family's physical meeting. Yet as the reunion date drew closer, new complications arose. Intelligence reports indicated increased enemy activity in nearby sectors, suggesting possible attempts to disrupt the event. Security measures escalated accordingly, with Marcus overseeing the integration of Xyloran energy shields with human defense systems. This collaboration produced unexpected results. The combined technologies generated protective fields that enhanced rather than interfered with each other, opening new possibilities for future joint operations. Through these trials, Marcus watched Lyra's relationship with her parents deepen despite the physical distance. Their virtual interactions evolved from tentative conversations to lively debates about Xyloran traditions and human customs. These exchanges fostered a unique blend of cultural understanding, with each party learning to appreciate the other's perspective while maintaining their distinct identities. The language barrier dissolved as they developed a hybrid communication style that incorporated both verbal and telepathic elements. The approaching reunion also forced Marcus to confront his own feelings about family and duty. Late nights spent reviewing security protocols often found him gazing at pictures of his daughter back on Earth, wondering how his extended absence affected their relationship. These reflections influenced his approach to Lyra's situation, making him more attuned to the delicate balance between protecting loved ones and allowing them space to grow. As final preparations progressed, the atmosphere on Xylora 7 shifted noticeably. The memory garden flourished, its vibrant colors reflecting the renewed hope spreading through the community. Soldiers and civilians worked side by side, their initial wariness transformed into genuine camaraderie. Even the planet's twin suns seemed to shine brighter, casting their light over a population united by shared purpose and mutual understanding. The day before the scheduled reunion, Marcus found himself walking through the memory garden with Lyra. She moved among the plants with practiced ease, her energy field harmonizing with the surrounding life forms. Without warning, she grasped his hand, her telepathic abilities conveying a complex message that transcended spoken language. In that moment, Marcus understood that their journey together had created something profound, a bond that bridged species, culture, and experience, forging a new definition of family in the crucible of shared adversity. Looking ahead, Marcus recognized that the reunion would mark not an ending, but a transition point in an ongoing narrative. The challenges of integrating Kalian and Seraphina back into their daughter's life, of reconciling past traumas with present realities, would require patience and wisdom from all involved. Yet the foundation they had built, through struggle, sacrifice, and unwavering hope, promised to support whatever future awaited them beyond the horizon of their current understanding. The morning of the reunion dawned with an unusual stillness, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Marcus stood at the entrance of the secure facility where Kalian and Seraphina had been recovering, watching Lyra pace nervously nearby. Her silver hair shimmered brighter than ever, reflecting her heightened emotions. Despite the meticulous planning and layers of security surrounding them, Marcus could feel the weight of anticipation pressing down on everyone present. Inside the facility, final preparations unfolded with precision. Medical teams conducted last-minute checkups on Kalian and Seraphina, ensuring they were physically ready for the emotional toll of seeing their daughter again. Engineers calibrated the hybrid energy shields that now surrounded the meeting area, a testament to the collaboration between human and Xyloran technology. Outside, peacekeepers from both species formed a protective perimeter, their unity a symbol of the fragile but growing trust between their peoples. Lyra stopped pacing and turned to Marcus, her violet eyes searching his face. "What if I don't know how to act?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "It's been so long." Marcus knelt before her, placing his hands gently on her shoulders. "You don't need to plan anything, Lyra. Just be yourself. They're your parents. They love you no matter what." She nodded, though doubt still flickered in her gaze. Before either of them could say more, the doors to the facility opened, and a Xyloran official stepped forward. "It's time," he announced softly, his scales shifting to a calming blue hue. Marcus walked beside Lyra as they entered the building, their footsteps echoing in the quiet corridor. The air thrummed with energy, not just from Lyra's nervous excitement, but from the collective hope of everyone involved. At the end of the hallway, another set of doors awaited, these adorned with intricate Xyloran symbols representing family and unity. Beyond them lay the reunion room, a space designed to feel warm and intimate despite its high-tech safeguards. As the doors slid open, Lyra froze in the threshold. Across the room, standing together under the soft glow of floating light orbs, were Kalian and Seraphina. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Then, with a cry that blended joy and relief, Lyra ran forward, her feet barely touching the ground. Kalian caught her first, lifting her into his arms as tears streamed down his indigo cheeks. Seraphina wrapped her arms around them both, her pearlescent skin glowing with emotion. The three of them clung to one another, their energy fields merging into a brilliant cascade of light that filled the room. Marcus stepped back, giving them space, his own eyes misting as he watched the scene unfold. For several minutes, there were no words, only sobs, laughter, and the overwhelming presence of love rekindled. When they finally pulled apart, Lyra looked up at her parents, her expression a mixture of awe and disbelief. "I thought I'd never see you again," she choked out, her voice breaking. "And we feared the same," Seraphina replied, brushing a strand of silver hair from Lyra's face. "But here we are, together again." Kalian placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder, his touch steady and reassuring. "You've grown so much, my star. Stronger than we could have imagined." Lyra glanced over at Marcus, who stood quietly by the door. "He helped me," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "He kept me going when I didn't think I could." Her parents followed her gaze, their expressions softening as they looked at Marcus. "Captain Hale," Kalian began, his voice thick with emotion, "we owe you more than words can express." Marcus shook his head, smiling faintly. "I only did what anyone would have done. It was Lyra's strength that brought you all this way." The reunion unfolded naturally after that, with conversations flowing easily between the family members. They shared stories of their separate journeys, the pain of loss, the moments of hope, and the resilience that had carried them through. Lyra listened intently as her parents described their captivity and eventual rescue, while they marveled at her courage and growth during their absence. Outside the reunion room, the atmosphere shifted subtly. Soldiers lowered their weapons slightly, their faces relaxing into smiles as they sensed the warmth emanating from within. Refugees gathered near the facility, drawn by the palpable sense of joy spreading outward. Someone began singing a traditional Xyloran hymn of gratitude, and soon the melody was joined by others, creating a chorus that rose toward the twin suns above. As the day wore on, the celebration expanded beyond the immediate family. A feast was organized in the memory garden, where food from both Earth and Xylora 7 was shared among humans and Xylorans alike. Children played among the plants, their laughter mingling with the hum of conversation. Elderly Xylorans exchanged tales of survival with human veterans, finding common ground in their experiences of hardship and hope. Marcus found himself seated beside Lyra and her parents, sharing stories of his own life on Earth. He spoke of his daughter, who had recently sent him a message expressing pride in his work. Lyra listened with rapt attention, occasionally chiming in with questions about human customs or offering insights into Xyloran traditions. Watching her interact so effortlessly with both species, Marcus realized how much she had grown, not just as a survivor of tragedy, but as a bridge between worlds. By evening, the sky glowed with the combined light of Xylora 7's twin suns, casting golden hues over the gathering. Fireflies native to the planet drifted lazily through the air, their bioluminescence adding to the magical ambience. Lyra stood with her parents, her hand clasped in theirs, gazing out at the crowd of people united by their story. "We have so much to rebuild," Serafina said softly, her voice carrying a note of determination. "But tonight, we celebrate what we've already achieved." Kalian nodded, squeezing Lyra's hand. "And tomorrow, we begin anew, with our family whole once more." Marcus raised a glass of sparkling Xyloran nectar, catching Lyra's eye across the table. She smiled at him, her violet eyes shining with unspoken thanks. In that moment, he knew their bond would endure, even as her life moved forward in new directions. The war wasn't over, and challenges undoubtedly lay ahead. But for now, in this place of healing and connection, peace felt possible. As the stars emerged one by one in the twilight sky, the people of Xylora 7 and their human allies embraced the promise of a brighter future, a future shaped by courage, compassion, and the unbreakable ties of family.